Hey everyone, I am selfishly so excited to be virtually sitting with Cory Ruth today. And most of you probably know her as the women's dietitian on Instagram. Cory has a really amazing story. It was actually her own hormone struggles and the complete lack of education surrounding women's fertility and reproductive health that led her to found her own company, the Women's Dietitian. Welcome to the show, Cory.
Oh, thank you so much. Yay. I can't wait to talk about all things business and women's health.
Yes, definitely. Me too. Okay. So, first things first, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to our listeners? Where are you based? And what do your days look like day to day?
So my name is Cory. I am aka the women's dietitian, and I am based in a very small town. I used to be in Los Angeles, and I was in the Bay Area in California, and then I moved up to a tiny little town by the Oregon border. I live in the middle of nowhere, and I absolutely love it. So I run this, company and virtually from this small town. I have a daughter who's almost 2. So running my own business full time and being pretty much a single mom. My partner's a firefighter, so he's out fighting all the fires. So it's a lot of work, but I absolutely love what I do. So yeah, what else? A little bit about my business, my company. So I work primarily exclusively with women, and I help them with hormone health. And a lot of the women that I work with have a condition called PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome. It is the leading cause of infertility, and it's the most commonly diagnosed endocrine condition in the world. But we really don't get a lot of education on it. And when we go to the doctors, we have 2 options: either get on the birth control pill or lose weight, which aren't always viable options for all of us. So I found that there was a big need, and we can get into this a little bit more when it comes to this condition. So I love working with women with PCOS, but I also do work around fertility, digestion, stress, and mindfulness. So lots of different things, and that I think that really helps me kind of stay interested in my business. I don't work in just one thing. I do a lot of different work. I could do work around Hashimoto's or endometriosis, and I find that variety is really helps to kind of fuel my passion to stay in this business. Day to day, every day looks so different, and that's why I became an entrepreneur. I hated doing the same thing day in and day out when I worked my 9 to 5. So yeah, that I loved how every day is a total toss up. What am I going to be doing? Creating content for my social media channels? Am I going to be working with clients or working in one of my programs, my online? I have 3 different programs that I'm running. I'm also launching a supplement line. So I've got all that. It's new to me. So I've been doing, label design and working on the formulas and, becoming an Amazon selling partner. And so that's been a whole nother avenue that I've had to kind of work my way into, and that keeps things exciting too. So yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And congrats on the supplement line. That's so cool.
Yes, so
So, I, so like I said, so I've been following you for about 6 years now because I suspected that I had PCOS and all of my doctors were like, nope, everything's fine. Your levels are fine. Everything's good. And so then I would like do some, testing on my own. If I was like, okay, if I eat really blood sugar balanced meals for the like next 2 months, am I going to get regular periods? And I did. And so there was like a lot of sort of stuff going on there. But it is incredibly interesting to me how little information there is for most women out there on the way that blood sugar affects your hormones and basically just what all of our hormones are and how they work together. So I was sitting with a friend a few weeks ago in San Francisco, and she's going through the process of getting her eggs frozen. And
okay.
it's the first time that she was ever taught about all of these hormones and the way and her luteal phase and the follicular phase, right? Which is insane. And I was like, oh my God, I need to have Cory Ruth on the podcast. So I was like, because I've been following you for so long because your content is so digestible and it's really relevant and it makes people, I think, feel seen. And I mean, there's no, like, you have almost 100,000 followers on Instagram of primarily, I'm going to assume, women who are dealing with hormone issues, Which
followers are women. So shout out to the 3% men. Appreciated. But yes, mostly.
I love that. So, I mean, obviously, you understood that this was a gap in the market. And I think a lot of amazing businesses are built out of a personal need. So, can you talk a little bit about that, about how it was a personal need for you in the beginning and, the moment that you were like, oh, I need to be sharing this with people?
Yes, yeah, exactly. I think that just based on my own experience, not understanding my PCOS and why didn't I have a 28-day cycle, right? We learn in school, your period comes every 28 days, you ovulate on day 14, don't get pregnant, have a nice day. That's not enough. And once I started to get into this field and kind of based on my own experience, I realized that women crave that information. We want to know what the hell is going on with our bodies. And we get one semester in school. And I remember talking to my friend, my best friend, who her daughter is 8, I think now. And I was talking about ovulation and she goes, well, what's that? So she's a mom, and I love her dearly. She's not in this field, so that's okay. She gets a free pass. And if she's listening to this, I'm so sorry, but bringing this up. But it's so common. She already has a child, right? Like she's already been through all of that. She's a mom, and she doesn't even know what ovulation is. I mean, it's amazing the lack of knowledge out there, and it's by no fault of our own. So I learned, it just based on my own experience and not having access to anything, when you Google and do research on why is my period missing, all kinds of scary things, pop up. And of course, those are potentials, but hormone health is something that you can't just Google and figure it out in a day. It's so complex. And so that's kind of what I wanted to gear my content towards, is something that was relatable to half our population. And I felt like that was a good business strategy. I mean, honestly, when I started, I didn't think anybody else was interested in hormone health. But when I started out, there weren't a lot of, people on social media talking about what I'm talking about. Now I feel like it's grown a lot. And it's become almost like this trend or whatever you want to call it. But and I don't pretend to be a part of that, but I do. When I started, I noticed that there wasn't a lot out there. So giving women, information that's easily digestible, like you said, and relatable. And one thing that I like to really do in my business that I also coach my business coaching clients, is to interject my own personality to this very heavy subject. Science and hormone health can be really complex and science heavy for, we're talking about different hormones and our whole endocrine system. And I wanted to introduce it in a way that I inject a lot of humor into what I'm putting out there, because I don't want to be that, reading a textbook type of account, because I wanted to make it relatable and interesting to other women. And if I made it funny, I felt like people would be more interested in it. So keeping it light, but also definitely weaving in evidence-based information that's helpful for other women. And I really try to teach that knowledge is power. And the more that we know about our bodies, the more control we can have over our hormones, and the better that we feel, the happier lives that we get, the happier our lives are. So that's kind of what I try to do out there on social media, is to make these big topics and kind of distill them down into really easy, actionable items that people really actually are interested in learning about. And I have a lot of women following me who don't have PCOS, and they still follow me because I do talk about periods and, PMS and ovulation and things that we really don't learn at all in school. And I always have women telling me how much that they learn from my page. And how did I learn all of this stuff? Well, because I've been through every hormone issue on the planet pretty much. And I've done a lot of my own research. I worked in a women's clinic alongside some really talented OBGYNs, and I learned a lot there. And then from the whole fertility side of things, I am a mom now, but it wasn't always like I had this perfect, fertility picture either. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything, and trying to put information out there that's fun and attractive, for people that aren't super big science nerds like I am, basically.
I love that. So, I mean, something that really strikes me about your Instagram, and, obviously you have your courses, you have private clients, like you have other things going on behind the scenes, of course, that, are like the big, that's your business. But what really hits me about your Instagram is that it's purely like giving without receiving knowledge. Like
Mhm.
it's just so much of like, hey, girls, here's what you need to know kind of thing. And I think that is so valuable and so like noble in a way that you're literally just there to teach people what is going on.
Mhm.
So in the beginning, because I mean, you have so much knowledge, right? Like so much experience. So in the beginning, when it felt like just wanted to like spill everything on the page, how did you sort of, like create a strategy around all the information that you wanted to get out there? Were you like, this is going to take me years, but I want to do it all right now? Like, how did that go for you?
Yeah, yeah, that's it's take so on social media, you can take big topics and you can't there's no way that you can address all of them. You have a very small amount of real estate there, or maybe it's a video. Videos are even harder because you have even less time to get your point and space to get your point across. So it's just taking little pieces and knowing that this account, I'm hopefully, whether, who knows the future of Instagram, but whether or not it's Instagram or another social media, I plan on being there in this space until, my career ends. So I know that, and I know that I want to give pieces of information more bite sized because I can't cover everything in one post. So if I have a list of 10 things that are supportive of optimizing your fertility, I'm going to dive into one of them on this post. And then I'm going to save the other one for a few weeks later. And so kind of so on and so forth. So it's just kind of grabbing pieces of things that I want to get out there and putting them out there in really kind of bite-sized smaller pieces so that I'm not covering too much and overwhelming people looking at the page.
And that's such a good tip, I think, even just for everybody listening, because I see, you see so much of like somebody wants to explain an entire topic. And so then they try to do it in one post. And it's,
Whoa.
yes, it's almost always lost. But I think distilling it down into like, okay, if these are the 10 things that you need to be optimizing, let's focus on literally one at a
Yeah.
time. And I think that is just so important to say.
So agree. I so agree. Yep. Little at a time.
Okay. So your reels are amazing. They're so funny. And TikToks, of course. I'm not super on TikTok, but reels amazing. Literally not sure anybody else makes period talk as relatable and hilarious as you do. Have your reels and the video content shown results when it comes to working with clients? Like, do you find clients, referencing maybe things that you posted about, or like, I'm sure, of course, people find you through social and then just want to work with you.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Oh my gosh, yeah. Reels are interesting. Since they've kind of blown up, I've had to change my strategy on Instagram a bit because what I've noticed is that bigger accounts that I was kind of always neck and neck with when it comes to growth, the ones that are not dabbling in reels, their growth has slowed tremendously. So I think we're all moving to this video side of things, and if you want to grow on social right now, you really have to sharpen your skills there. So Reels has been a whole adventure. I mean, there's lots to say there, but from what I gather from Reels, it's really about finding viral audio and making it your own, right? So finding these clips of sound and thinking, okay, I work in hormone health. How can I make that? This person's talking about their whatever it is. Um, Whoa, excuse me. This person's talking about their jewelry business. And I like their reel. How cute. I'm going to use that audio clip and I'm going to spin it into talking about, I don't know, period cramps. So it's kind of making it your own. But yeah, I do. Lots of people find me from reels. I've had, I think, two reels, one that's gone. I don't know what the cutoff is for the word viral, but I mean, I was getting like 900 new followers a day from it. So Yeah. So, if you have a reel that does that for you, I mean, you can see a tremendous amount of growth in a short amount of time. So, I really do recommend that if you haven't already started to dip your toes into the video world, you really need to, because that's where social's going, sort of from what I see. And I don't pretend to be a social media expert. I'm not, but just in my experience.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, I have a lot of clients that are super overwhelmed by it, but it's just the way of what's going on right now. So it's like
Yeah,
adapt or.
100%, exactly.
Uh,
Yep, yep.
so let's talk a little bit about your course that you have launching because, we're talking about video content. So when did so first tell us a little bit about the course, right? It's called Get Pregnant with PCOS.
Yes, that is. So I have two online courses. Get Pregnant with PCOS is the one that I've had the longest, and I think gosh, I'm like losing count. I think I'm launching it for the sixth time next month, the sixth or the fifth. Gosh, I have to look. But that program was created when I was pregnant because I needed something to keep me afloat while I was on maternity leave. There is no maternity leave when you're on, an entrepreneur. I was still on Instagram. I was doing a Dutch consultation, I think 3 days postpartum. So there's no, you don't get paid, when you're gone. So I needed something that I wasn't seeing clients face to face that would help keep me afloat. So that program, I think I had about I want to say 12,000, 14,000 followers at that point. This was a while ago. And I did sell out of the program. I sold 50 spots, I think. And it has just grown from there. And I've updated everything. I've redone a lot of stuff. I've added all kinds of stuff. So the price point is obviously higher. And I know that it works. And that's the most beautiful part of the program is that it is so successful. And I have so many ladies who we don't learn this in school. We're not getting it from our doctors. So where are we going to get this information? And it's all super evidence-based, and it's delivered in a very similar way as my social media channel, in that it's delivered in a very fun, easy, simple, you're not going to be learning all about, how the Krebs cycle, this is how actionable things. So that course will relaunch next month. And then a few months ago, I launched alongside of it what's called the Boss Academy, and that focuses exclusively on weight loss and symptom management. So that's kind of for people that aren't focused on the fertility side of things. So I'm now running both of those programs together 3 times a year. And they are, I mean, the amount that you can, the amount of women that you can reach and help versus one-on-one work is huge. And that's so gratifying to me as a healthcare provider, because it's like I can take all this stuff and I can disseminate that information to hundreds. I'll have 900, if they all sell out, which I anticipate them to do, I'll have 900 women every year, in the program. And I thought about doing like a subscription base, like a membership, because I see that a lot. But when I looked at the numbers, I could actually see more, make more, and help more women in the program if I ran the program for a certain amount of time, a certain number of times per year.
Yeah. And I think that's so amazing because it is, it's sort of like back to the social media in the beginning when it started, like there's so many people that need this help. And like most women we don't know anything. We're not taught to know about this stuff. And when you're a service provider and you're working with clients one-on-one, like even if you're as busy as you possibly can be, you really can't see more than 30, 40 people a week. Like, and then you're totally burning yourself out and you're just not feeling good. But, 900 people, I think that is just like, that just must feel so gratifying to you that you're like, okay, this is the mission. Like this was it, to get all the information out as fast as I can, as, as clearly as I can. And I just think that's so cool. That's so much fun.
Yeah,
So, yeah. How has it, I mean, so you said you've been in the courses now for about 5 to 6 years. You launch it 3 times a year, right?
So I launched Get Pregnant with PCOS in the fall of 2019.
Okay.
So the online courses were, I only wanted to introduce them once I had a certain amount of followers because I wanted to make sure that it was going to reach enough people and I was going to actually make real money off of them.
Mhm.
So I've run Get Pregnant PCOS for a couple years, and the Boss Academy is new, and it'll be the second time I'm running it next month. So
Okay, amazing. So
yeah.
what have you learned from, like the very first course launch? Have you added new stuff in? Have what are like the little tangible things that happen between launches for you to sort of optimize what that looks like?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is the marketing aspect. Once we create our course, if we're not marketing the heck out of it, we're not going to have it's not going to be a viable business option. So the sales and the marketing, I have a lot of business coaching students, clients, whatever you want to call them, who are like, oh, okay, I have an online course, I'm ready to launch, I think I'm going to open the doors on Friday. I'm like, it's Tuesday. No, like you need some marketing strategy right beforehand, because you really have to look at your audience and figure out exactly, when you're creating the course, exactly what do they need, right? Like we talked about. And then you have to tease them about the course a little bit. Oh, like here's a piece of information. I go through this in my course, really, really in depth. You're going to learn all about XYZ in this course. You'd be a great fit for it. And then you also have to give that enough time. And, there's all kinds of marketing strategies, but time is really important. You don't want to just launch something in a few days. You want to give enough time to kind of generate some buzz, generate some interest. Once you actually put on the course and it's through, you want to make sure to collect testimonials, because those testimonials sell your programs themselves. I mean, I can't tell you how many messages I get. Hey, Cory, like I just took a positive pregnancy test. I am so excited. Boom, share that to my Instagram, join this program. And I mean, it's a twofer, because I'm getting results for these women, but also they're helping me to open up the opportunity for more women to take the course. So it's really a beautiful thing. So marketing is huge. The sales aspect, really making sure you're generating some interest for the course itself. And then using those testimonials that anytime you can grab anything, anytime someone says something great about the program, that's what you want to highlight.
Yeah, literally everybody out there listening, like get your testimonials. I just feel like I can't say it enough to people. Like every single, like you're saying, every text message, it could be the smallest thing ever, but
Thing.
every single thing you're getting, because it's also like, I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way. Like I get so touched every time I see a message or anything. Like even just like someone saying I got a positive pregnancy test, that's you being like,
It's
oh
like,
my God, that person's gonna have a baby because of me. Like that's,
mm-hmm.
oh my God, just like mind
On the internet.
blowing.
That sounded weird, but yes, totally. Very gratifying every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, it's just like everybody, you just need to be getting those testimonials and be getting them in a focused way too, right? Like I think that's a really big thing is I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of entrepreneurs, get testimonials that are like, "Oh my God, I love your program. It's great." And then you're just like, "Okay, but like what?" So it's like the more focused questions of like, what results did you see? Oh, I saw a positive pregnancy test. Great. How did you get there? Well, I limited, this that I didn't realize was screwing with my hormones and blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. So that someone can then really see that and be like, oh, I might be doing that. I need to learn how to not do that. And then you're
Yes.
like, boom, okay, swipe up, sign up. Sounds good.
Exactly. So true. So true. Yeah. And I don't know like what the magic formula is. I think that just being with having, the primary marketing channel being my Instagram, I've really used that space to talk about the programs, but I don't do it in an excessive salesy pitch way. That's important, and that's why I give so much free information on my page, because I don't want to be always selling something, because you come off as, not authentic and genuine. So it's important to weave that sales aspect, into your social in a way that's strategic, and not just always dumping like, sign up, swipe up, swipe up, swipe up, swipe up. So, I mean, I have my times, right before my launch, I'm very heavy on that. But in between, you won't really hear me talking too much about that. I'm still talking about the topics that introduce that need, but I'm not super talking about the program itself. So it's kind of a balancing act too. You don't want to not talk about it, but you don't want to have that be kind of like the primary point, a focal point of your page and what you're putting out.
Yeah. And I think, you hit the nail on the head. Like the giving without receiving aspect
Yeah.
is super important. And that's,
Mhm.
you're known for that. Like you do that really well already. So it's you've built in that trust factor very early on. And that is just so important.
The like, no trust factor, right? That's
Mhm.
so important. And that's
Yep.
why it's so cool to have social media, because especially with stories, you can show who you are. And I have people tell me that they think they know me and like they're like we're friends. Like I took a 3-day break from Instagram recently, and I literally I was getting DMs and texts, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yes, I am just fine, guys. Spending time with my family." Like, so people really start to know you, and that's super important. You really want to put your personality out there. If your personality is weird, be a weirdo. People are gonna love it. If you're not, then don't be, but be authentic, whatever it is, because people can smell when you're not being authentic. Like they can smell that a mile away, and they're like, ugh, this person. So just be you, and try to, personality is so big. It's so important on social media when there's a billion of us out there, especially as dietitians. So yeah, that I think your personality can just help sell your program or your one-on-one work or whatever it is that you're selling. And you have to leverage that. And if that means doing a little bit of, deep diving into how am I going to best put my personality out there? What am I going to showcase? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Figuring that out. Working with a business coach can be really helpful in kind of sussing that out. So it's important. It really is. When you're selling things to people, it is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Okay, let's segue a little bit into the dietitian space
Yes.
and what sort of, because we are talking a lot about Instagram, your social media strategy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the I want to put this like nicely, the rise in influencers and in health influencers and nutritionists. Can you first walk us through a little bit of what the differences are in nutritionists versus health coaches versus registered dietitians like you are?
Totally. So anybody in the entire, well, I'll say no, in the US, anybody in our country, it's different for other countries, but anybody in the US can call themselves a nutritionist with no credential, no, nothing. Like my dog could say, I'm a nutritionist now. Great, yay. Like literally anybody. So that's the difference. A dietitian, we have to, starting in 2024, we all have to have master's degrees in nutrition and dietetics or something like that. And the reality is most of us have that now anyways, but that's a requirement. We have to have a bachelor's right now, but that master's degree is going to be a requirement. We have to go through a rigorous academic calendar as far as all the different courses that we're needing to take. We take chemistry, we take biology, we take physiology, anatomy, we take microbiology, all these different science courses. And then we have to pass we have to pass a comprehensive exam at the end of that training. And we have to do a year of unpaid internships. So we're doing rotations, like kind of like in medical school when they're doing different rotations as far as different units. We're doing that as well, but we're doing them at hospitals. We're doing them in community clinics. We can do like what's it called? Gosh, I'm blanking now. But you can work for underneath another dietitian. You can work in food service, so working around food safety. So there's all kinds of requirements that a dietitian has to meet. And on top of that, every 5 years we have to do a certain amount of continuing education units to stay abreast, to stay current in all of the different nutrition and scientific literature that's coming out at us. So a lot goes into being a registered dietitian, and anybody can call themselves a nutritionist. And so every dietitian gets all offended when someone calls them a nutritionist, but yeah, so there is a big difference. And I think what I see too is a level of commitment to best practices, staying inside your, scope of work. From an ethical standpoint, we get all kinds of instruction on ethics and how to make sure that we're staying in our lane, basically. So we're doing a lot of that, and it's important. We get very little business, if any, how to run your own business as a dietitian. So a lot of us have really had to figure that out on our own, and that's where business coaches can be super super helpful, because we really don't learn a lot about that in school, and we don't learn much about hormone health either. But that's kind of the difference.
That's so interesting. Thank you for, telling us all of that. So, I think I've seen you do a little bit of like myth busting, right, on social occasionally. How do you it must make you cringe every time you see like, the false information of like, you have to completely cut out carbs or blah, 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 like whatever all the misinformation is. How do you deal with that? Being like, no, that's not true. Like, what's
Oh,
your thought process?
I know. I hear it all the time. I hear the craziest stuff. Like, oh, well, I heard, carrots are too carby or too full of sugar, so we shouldn't eat carrots. And honestly, I've heard so many things, and I hear them every day, that I'm kind of immune. I'm just like, no, that's false. But when you do take a look at it, especially on social media with the rise of influencers as, giving health advice and selling like fizz tea or whatever that crap is, it is really, it's hard to hear. But I feel like every dietitian has to deal with it in some way or another. And so that's why it is helpful to do myth busts. And I do try to do them on a semi-regular basis in order to address, but at the end of the day, you cannot address everything out there because there's so much BS. So I always try to talk about what, I'm probably going to post that reel today about what a dietitian is. That's interesting that we're talking about this right now, because I do try to remind my audience, why do you choose a dietitian over whoever Kardashian is selling you whatever slim tea, because it is important. And I think people I think generally, I'm just gonna, with my rose colored glasses and my glass half full attitude, I'm gonna say that I think people are understanding that more. After we see this, rise of social media and all the BS, and then we have all this backlash from professional healthcare providers like myself, I think people are doing better in that category and understanding what's kind of fact from fiction. But there's still a lot of work to be done, and that's why we're here.
Totally. And everybody listening, like, share information from experts on your social. I feel like that's like the best way. Yes. Right. Like whoever is like an absolute expert, just share their information so that we can like really just lift up the credible sources. Okay. So we got 2 questions on Instagram that I wanted to address because I thought they were pretty awesome. Number 1, we actually just talked about it. So this person submitted a question and she said that her boyfriend has been advising her. She didn't say, but I assume she suffers from PCOS. And her boyfriend is advising her to cut out all carbs, but she likes eating some carbs with a meal. Can you walk her through a little bit of how she should be integrating those carbs into her meals and keeping her blood sugar at a stable level?
Yes. And let's also back up too. And just to make this applicable for everyone listening here, if someone that you love, even if they are very smart and qualified, or not qualified, even if they're very smart, if they are not an expert in this subject and they don't have formal training and credentials, seek that expert opinion. And you can tell them nicely, I really appreciate that you're trying to help and support, but I did read that from this whatever article from this dietitian's website that's probably not the best route to go. So with hormone health, we are focused on blood sugar regulation and stable, making sure our blood sugar is nice and stable. Why? Because when our blood sugar is, sorry if you can hear my dog in the background, working from home life. So if your blood sugar is not as stable as it should be or could be, it's a stressor on the body. The body has to work overtime to regulate it. And it also can lead a lot of us to increase our production of androgens, which are our male sex hormones. That can cause all kinds of symptoms. It can make weight gain easier, weight loss harder. So you don't need to cut all of your carbohydrates out. like going keto, because the fact is that we have hormones for our whole lives, and we have to make eating for them sustainable for the long run. And cutting out all carbohydrates, you might be able to do it for a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months, but you're going to get burnt out on that really fast. And it's going to be incredibly difficult to maintain. So I want you to flip your perspective on that, and incorporate a smaller amount of carbohydrates. So if you were at an Italian, say you and your partner, her and her boyfriend, were sitting down for an Italian dinner, and typically, you'd get a big plate of pasta, right? Maybe the pasta has a couple like zucchini slices in there, and then that's their meal, right? Veggies with pasta sounds healthy. Maybe it's a whole grain pasta, so they're like, yeah, that's okay. So we're gonna flip that, and we want to make sure we have a protein. And the pasta, even if it's like a chickpea or like a bonza pasta, that's still a carb. So instead of having that whole plate of pasta with some vegetable like flecks in there, you're gonna grab a small scoop of that pasta. You're gonna add a bunch of veggies on the side and add a protein. That's more supportive of blood sugar levels than the other one. So you don't have to change up everything you're eating, but you do have to play with the portion sizes.
Yes, I love that. I think that's so helpful. Okay, so then the other question we got was around time of day to exercise and working out when you're at different areas in your cycle. And, for sake of time, I feel that's, an entire podcast episode probably. Are there good resources maybe that you can point people in the direction of, or do you have resources or anything about like working out, or resources you trust even working out when, at different times of day, if that impacts your hormones, and then B, at different points in your cycle?
Yeah, good question. So really heavy, intense exercise can increase our cortisol. So that's something to think about if you're finding that you are having difficulties with really nice, good quality long hours of sleep. You might not want to do some heavy, intense exercise before in the evening, right? You might want to switch that up to the morning. If you're finding that you're just absolutely obliterated in the morning, you like cannot get out of bed, you're kind of slugging through your morning routine, you might want to add some exercise in the morning, give you that little boost. So it kind of depends on how you're feeling in regards to exercising, but there's no like one best time to exercise, if that helps to kind of clarify that. In regards to the eating throughout your cycle, I'll just give you my resource in my brain here. You're going to notice if you're tracking your cycle, and this does not include women on birth control, right? Because we're talking about natural hormone rhythm. You're going to notice your energy levels really fluctuate throughout your cycle. You're going to be feeling totally meh when you get your period because your sex hormones are at rock bottom. So you might feel some fatigue. That's a time to kind of focus more on restorative workouts. So that might be walking, hiking, slow biking, yoga, those types of things, because we're feeling kind of sluggish. When our period ends and our estrogen starts to rise, we feel our best. And you might notice that mid-cycle, you're feeling your most outgoing, you feel the sexiest. They've done studies about that. It's really interesting. So you're going to want to leverage that, take advantage of that energy boost. And that's when you want to try to hit it hard with the cardio, the strength training, get as much movement in movement in as you can. As you get closer to your period, what we call the luteal phase, so that's kind of the 2 weeks-ish leading up to your period, you're going to notice a dip in energy. So if you can, if you want to sustain the kind of the cardio and the strength training, but take it down a notch or switch more into those restorative workouts, that's a way to work out that nourishes your hormones. And remember that with hormone balance, we're not trying to become Olympic athletes. That's actually probably going to harm them more than you're going to help them. So you don't need to go ham at the gym 7 days a week in order to have, nice hormone health that's responding well to movement. It doesn't have to be that hardcore. When we're talking about health, diet, nutrition is super, super important. Movement is important too. But the two can really kind of coexist, and you don't need to go extreme in the exercise category. I hope that's helpful.
I think that's super helpful. Hopefully they think it's helpful as well, but yes, I love that. Okay, so we are nearing the end. Are you ready for a few quick rapid fire questions?
I'm nervous because I like suck at this on this. Okay, let's go. Let's
Okay.
go.
What is your number one favorite song to work out to?
So I made a girl power playlist, and I put on some old gems like Fighter by Christina Aguilera, and Independent Woman by Destiny's Child. And I mean, it changes obviously what my favorite workout, but I am loving that playlist. I'm like crushed at the gym, like,
I love that. Oh my God, amazing. Okay, well, I might have to link to that in the show notes because that sounds amazing. What is software that you cannot run your business without?
I guess social media, right?
Yeah.
Instagram, TikTok. I would not have a business if I didn't exist on there. So
Yeah.
but I would not have anywhere near what my business looks like.
Yeah, definitely. What is the best business advice you ever got or like to give?
Yeah. I guess, going back to our conversation, personality. I guess it is
Mm,
personality. It because in business coaching, when I coach business clients, I cannot teach personality, right? I cannot make you into this, 300,000 follower, Instagram superstar, if you don't have the personality for it. So do a deep dive, figure out like I said, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and play up your strengths. Make sure that you're being authentic and being you, and your business and your clients are going to be attracted to you because there are a million women, a million dietitians out there. And why do they want to work with me? Cory, a big part of that is my personality and what I can bring to the table and relate to them on. So that's probably my number one strategy. Sounds
I
simplified.
love that. I love that. And I mean, I love the Strengths Finder assessment test. I think
Yes,
it's
I love that.
yeah, Lululemon made us do it. Once we hit like a certain manager level, they made us take
Yeah,
it, like made us, but it was
yeah.
suggested. And, I feel like you never know what you say now. um, people are like the next day, the headline's going to be like, Lululemon forces women into taking
Lululemon
strength
forces
finder.
personality.
But it highlights like your five. It's a quick assessment. You have to answer the questions very quickly,
Yes.
and it's five pillars of your leadership style essentially, and like
Cool.
it's very cool, and I've always loved it. It's something I kind of always go back to, so love that.
That is so.
Okay. Yes. Advice you would give your younger self.
Yeah. Looking back, I'm like, ooh. There's a lot of advice. I think, gosh, and I guess this is tough. Advice I give my younger self. Probably to I when I became a dietitian and I started working some of the jobs that I had worked, I was miserable. I hated every minute and I didn't know how to fix it. And I wish that I would have made the leap sooner to take the risk of opening my own business because I was making good money. I was working this corporate job. I've quadrupled that and more. So I wish I would have told myself to just grow the balls and do it sooner. I'm glad that I eventually grew those balls, but it took me a while. And I wish that I would have just jumped in and done it. I was so passionate. I still am so passionate about it. So that's probably, I guess that. I don't know. I don't know what else.
I mean, that's great for everybody listening. If you're thinking about doing something, just do
Just
it.
do it. Do the
Do
thing.
it. I love that. Okay. And then the final question I'm going to ask is one lesson that you took from 2020 that you want to keep with you.
Mm. Um, I think it's uh, appreciating in-person interactions. We all took those for granted, and then when they ceased to be a part of our daily or whatever weekly routines, we realized how we've really moved to such a digital, and my whole business is online, right? So I've already been there already. I was working from home before the pandemic, so it didn't affect me as much. But And now when I went to a birthday party, like my daughter's one of her best friends who's 2, and I was like sitting there just so grateful that we were all in this room together, hanging out, having drinks, slicing cake. It was so fun. And I so appreciate those moments now that I more than I ever had before. So I think that's probably my biggest takeaway is, filling up my gratitude bucket. I'm all about the gratitude practice. So that's been so great to have kind of starting to happen again around us.
I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. All
Yeah.
right. Well, Cory, this has been amazing. I
Yes.
am going to link to your website, your Instagram, everything in the show notes. So everybody listening, I know you guys are going to want to follow her and see these amazing TikToks and things that she posts because they are really so much fun.
Oh,
But thank you so much. It was such an honor.
yes, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your time, and I hope that this was helpful. If anybody, has questions, or pop onto my Instagram and send me a DM. I'm super. I manage that account. So I do read all my messages and all that good stuff. So send them over.
Amazing. Thank you, Cory.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.